What's up, everybody? This is Aaron the Pedantic. Today we're going to do what it is to be a warrior in Dungeon Crawl Classics. So, congratulations! You either survived your character funnel, your level 0 ordeal, and you decided to go into the great act of being a warrior, or you convinced your judge to skip it. In which case, shame on you. Shame. You should do the funnel. Do the funnel. No, the funnel shouldn't be required every time, but it is a lot of fun. So what we have before us is a most beautiful standard Goodman Games official character sheet for a warrior. So as you can see, it is specifically customized to maximize what a warrior has. There's not a uniform one for every single class because there are different things to focus on, but there are some similarities. You can find a fillable character sheet on the Goodman Games website, and this particular one, just like the last ones, was drawn up completely out of random generation by the Purple Sorcerer upper level character generator. So we have a warrior. Now, let's look at this sheet real quick. So name and title. Title is specific to the class and the level and your alignment. So you'll see a chart for it for each class. It has no real game point necessarily. It's just specifically for flavor, so don't worry about that. Wizard's Apprentice. So this originally was a Wizard's Apprentice, and apparently they said, fuck it, I don't want to do all that. I want to smash things with an axe. So they are of the lawful alignment. That will mostly just play into roleplay type situations, and whether or not you can be healed by such and such persons, and also, one of the things that can happen per the judge's manual, which is really just the giant-ass rule book, one of the things that can happen is if you act in accordance with your alignment, the judge can give you some of your luck back that you've already spent. So speed is 25. That's how much you can move in a round and still have your action dice available. So you can actually just forego using your action dice to move 25 feet twice. It's a thing you can do. Level XP is going to be 10 at level 1. That's just like how much XP it takes to be level 1. So that's a little different, I would say. All right, 14 armor class. Why do we have 14 armor class? It is because we have chainmail, which is actually +5 to your armor class. Now, why is it only a 14? Because we have a -1 to our agility score. We have 14 hit points, which is very good. This fellow rolled really well on their hit points. Warriors in DCC get a D12 hit die, which is phenomenal. They really get a lot of hit points compared to most people. And we had the benefit of getting +1 from our stamina both times. So both times being the D4 for level 0 and the D12 for level 1. So every time, just like in 5th edition, every time you roll in the future, next level up, it's D12 +1. And that just kind of continues on. What else? So initiative. Here is something that might be a little bit different. So this particular warrior is likely going to be using their battle axe. So a battle axe is actually, it's a two-handed weapon. I'm gonna check on that real quick. Battle axe. It's a D10. I'm assuming it's a two-handed. Where's my fucking equipment section? It's not after the spells, is it? There's no way it's after the spells. Yeah, that would be ridiculous. I think it's around the fumbles. Okay, there's crits. So it's just above that. Okay, here we go. Sorry. I'm sorry this took so long, but I wanted to be 100% on this. I didn't want to mislead somebody. Okay, so a battle axe is a two-handed weapon. All right. So because of the fact that it is a two-handed weapon, then that means that whenever you roll initiative, you actually roll D16, which is not a D20. I know that. So I mentioned previously that they use funky dice in this. If you don't have a D16, so hopefully you're playing online right now because of pandemic or whatever. So you can usually use a random a dice bot, which you can just type in whatever the hell you want. My friend Brad was very eagerly wanting to tell me during my first video that I should have been using random.org, in which case you can roll a dice of like all kinds of types. So a die. I use the plural wrong. So that is a way. Another way is the method that I showed before, which basically just take a D8 and roll it twice. The first time for odds and evens. If it's odd, you don't add 8. If it's evens, you add 8. And then the second die is what you would add to. So like let's say I got a 6 and a 7, then that means that because it was even, I'm going to add 8 to the 7, which makes it a 15. It sounds complicated. It's really not that bad. Like, really, there's nothing wrong. Just get the dice. You can get them for fairly cheap. They have this really cheap brand that I bought mine from, and it was like maybe $12. They're called like Who Knew or something like that. And you can find them at most local game stores. Okay, so now that that's over, you roll a D16 and add your agility modifier. Here we would have a -1. So that's whenever you're using a two-handed weapon. A lot of people forget about that rule. But you're an honorable person, so you should remind your judge. Okay, so then we have action dice. Now this is going to tell you how many actions you can do per turn. This is going to change as you level up. You typically around level 5 or 6, you'll start to get another action. So for the warrior, they'll start to get it at 5, I believe. So they'll have like a D20 and then it's a D16, I think. So basically they'll get to do their first attack with a D20. They'll do their second attack with a D16. And so that's to kind of simulate that, they're pushing themselves a little bit beyond their normal limits when it comes to their making an attack. So they're not going to be as precise. They're a little bit more prone to failure, but it still lets you behave a little bit more. Now, here is the juicy bit. This is where you're going to start to see that, stats aren't really like make or break in this game, unless you just have abysmal stats for the particular class you're playing. Because as you see, this particular warrior has a 0 bonus to their strength. However, they have this thing called the deed dice. So if you look, it says a D3 on attack rolls. So you don't just get like a +1 like most of the other ones get, where they'll have a +1, eventually they'll get a +2, eventually they get a +3. No. You get a whole ass dice, a die. I did it again, where you roll this and you add it to your D20 roll or D16 depending, and that will add to your attack, your to hit, and your damage. So like basically, and this goes up every single level. So it starts at a D3, then it goes to a D4, and up and up and up and up, and then eventually it gets to a D10, and then it gets to a D10 plus a modifier. So like basically you get to a point where you fucking rarely miss, and you usually get to do something really cool. So that is where the Mighty Deed comes in. So the Mighty Deed is what you use your deed die for, other than just for your bonus. So the way that this works is that I'm this warrior. So let's say my warrior name is Cliff for some reason, and there is an enemy that is clearly about to cast a spell. Okay, so let's say that my deed is it would like to run in their direction and then smash my the pommel of my sword into their face so that they can't speak. Okay, so what I do is I roll my attack, I roll my deed die. So if my attack roll plus my deed die hits and my deed die equals a 3 or higher. I know it sounds complicated, but you learn it super fast. If all those conditions are met, then something cool happens. And usually you announce what cool thing you're going to do before you do the roll. So there's no limit. You can do this every single time you make an attack. So what this kind of translates to is that as you play with this warrior more and more and more, you're just constantly doing cool shit in battle. So in this case, let's say you do roll the 3 on the deed die, you do hit. So what I might do is I might rule that you make them bite their tongue. So they're going to have like a -3 to their next spell check. Now, let's say that you had a bigger deed die. Let's say you had a D8 for the deed die, and you rolled an 8. Well, in that case, I might say that they bit their tongue off, because basically the higher you roll on the deed die and you hit, the better the outcome is for you. And this can encompass all kinds of things. It can be like a rallying cry. It can be all kinds of things for your group. So the sky's the limit. There are guidelines in the rule book that kind of give you suggestions on what you can do with it. So that is what that D3 is, and that's going to grow with every level. So next you have the crit die. The crit die is a D12, and the important thing is that it's on crit table 3. Now crit table 3 is one of the better crit tables. So that's the one reserved for clerics and high level, or clerics and wizards, not wizards, clerics and warriors, very different. So it's a good crit table. It involves a lot of heavy stuff. And the fact that you start with a D12 means that you roll a D12 whenever you roll a natural 19 or 20. So where you see this is your critical threat range under warrior abilities. It says 19 to 20. This also goes up. Eventually it gets to a 17 to 20. So anytime you roll a 19 or a 20 on your D20 for an attack roll, you crit. And then you roll a D12, and then you reference that to crit table 3. Now, this particular character has a +1 to luck, so that means you would roll D12 and add 1. And then you would look at your result, and that'll tell you what happens. Okay, so now another thing to know, the chainmail over here on the far right, you see it has a +5 to your AC. It has a -5 to the check penalty. So whenever you do like a reflex saving throw, boy, you're at a -5. If you're having to do an agility check, you're at a -5. Basically, anything that requires you to move quickly or nimbly, you're at a -5. So that is a bad thing. And also, you have a fumble die of a D12. So a fumble die is when you roll a nat 1 on an attack, then you roll a D12 to see what horrible thing happens to you. Now, because you have a positive luck modifier, you will subtract your luck modifier from your fumble roll because you want to roll low on the fumble roll. So that will determine what bad thing happens. Now, what the warrior can do and the dwarf is they can, I'm trying not to get into that whole stuff, but it just slipped, sorry, is that they can spend a point of luck to not fall over. So they can basically prevent themselves from having to fumble. It's something where maybe you're not that worried about it. Maybe it's not a big deal right now. You'd rather save your point of luck. Or maybe this is like one of the most crucial moments in battle and you really can't afford to fall. Then you can burn your luck in order to keep yourself from fumbling. What else do we have here? So melee attack and melee damage. It's obvious. I don't really need to tell you anything there. We got missile attack and missile damage. What else do we have? So the reflex, fortitude, and will saves, those are dependent on the class. So as you can see, the agility modifier is a -1, yet we have a 0 for reflex save. That's because the warrior has a +1 to reflex saves. And this is going to be noted on the class page. The stamina modifier is a +1, yet we have a +2 to fortitude saves. So that is because we have a +1 to fortitude saves at this level. And those will go up with time. Eventually, the willpower saves will go up as well, but they're less, they grow slower. All right. What else do we need here? Okay. Intelligence. So we're not very smart, so we just know common. That's not a warrior thing. That's just a this warrior thing. Something to consider. This character does have thieves tools, but they don't have like a skill for using thieves tools. They don't have the open locks ability or anything like that. So the way that I would rule this is a wizard's apprentice. They have no business really knowing how to unlock anything, like with thieves tools. So this would be an untrained ability. And this is something that they probably started with. This was randomly rolled. So basically, it looks like they started with a black grimoire because of Wizard's Apprentice, and then you get a random piece of equipment, and they got thieves tools. So basically, what I would say is you can roll a d10 because you're untrained, and then you can add your agility, which is not a good thing. So the highest possible roll that they could get would be maybe a 9 without spending luck. So that is kind of what you're looking at there. What else do we have on this character? Not a whole lot. So there's, even though they have like a +0 to strength, they are kicking ass. They are kicking ass because every attack they get a +1 and then a +1 to 3. And they also have this thing called Lucky Weapon. So Lucky Weapon is whenever you make your character, actually at any point in their lifetime, but only once in their lifetime, you can say, this is the kind of weapon that this character is really good at. And so this is kind of the thing where, you see in most movies where, like they have like a special weapon that they're really good at and they use it all the time. Let's say you have a +3 to your luck because you're just a lucky son of a bitch. Then that means that you have a +3 every time you use that kind of weapon. You have to be specific. You can't just say swords. You have to say long sword or short sword or two-handed sword. So let's say that they chose a short. What do they got? They've got a battle axe. So they chose a battle axe as their lucky weapon. So they have a +1 because of their luck. So they got a +1 there. That makes it +2. And then this makes it +3 to 5. So that in DCC is not a bad set of rolls. It's not a bad range for a level 1 character in order to hit. Most of the armor classes that you're going to be dealing with in the lower levels are probably like 10 to 13. So that means that you're going to be hitting as a warrior at least 50% of the time, which is pretty standard, I would say. Some of the other character classes are going to have a little bit less luck with that. And speaking of luck, you have 13 points to spend. You don't get it back, though. You're not a thief. So keep that in mind. The way that you get luck back is by kind of doing things that the judge appreciates, which often is going to be like, doing something according to your alignment. So enforcing the law because we're lawful. Stuff like that, but it's up to the judge's discretion, so don't expect it. That's one of the many resources of the game. This is part of the reason why a lot of people, whenever they play a one-shot, they just burn luck like crazy, because you don't have to worry about getting it back. Who gives a shit? But if you're playing a long-term campaign, you need to keep that in mind. Yeah, so ultimately that's being a warrior in a nutshell. Now, what do you have to look forward to as a warrior? So as you level up as a warrior, obviously you get the D12 hit points every time, so it keeps on growing. Your saving throws are going to keep increasing. Your fortitude especially is going to get higher. Your reflex is going to get higher. Your willpower a little bit, not as much. But you get the second action die sooner than everyone else. So you're going to be attacking twice in a round at level 5. And by then you're going to be like having an extra D5. Oh, no, it's not a D5. It's going to be a D7. It's either a D7 or a D8 with your action die. So D20 plus a D8. And then you do that twice. So you get 2 attacks where you get to add a D8 to it, to your attack roll. So, and it applies to your damage. So you're going to be doing a phenomenal amount of damage. You're going to be critting more often because it goes from 19 to 20 down to 18 to 20 and then down to 17 to 20. You're going to be critting on like basically every level up or so. Your crit die increases to the point where you end up rolling a D30 on crit table 5, where you can decapitate in a single strike. So, I mean, that's a 15% chance on the high end of the levels where you have where you roll a crit, and then it's not even close to a 15% chance, but like a 3%. Actually, no, I take that back. It's more like a 5% chance, maybe 15 actually. Yeah, about 15. About a 15% chance that you just decapitate somebody outright. So warriors are profoundly powerful, and none of that requires you having high strength. The strength is really just going to be related to strength-related contests, just a little bit of extra, damage that you can deal, a little bit of extra attack roll, and encumbrance, which some people don't really track anyway. So, yeah, that's pretty much the warrior in a nutshell. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. And the Mighty Deed system gives you a lot of versatility. You can do all kinds of things. Just constantly be thinking about, what could I do that's really creative that will give me a little bit of an edge in this, give my teammates an edge in this combat. And we've done all kinds of things. We've done like leaping attacks where you cover more ground. We've done like really cool maneuvers, like this guy cutting his way down. If you've ever played Prince of Persia, one of the things you could do is you could like stab into like this drapery or something. No, it's a curtain. So you'd stab into the curtain and, ride it down and then drop and do an attack on them. Just all kinds of stuff. You can do anything that you can think of as long as it makes sense and the judge is on board with it, which they typically are. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Probably tomorrow we'll do the wizard, because I love the wizard, and the wizard is one of the things that makes DCC amazing. So thanks for tuning in. Take it easy. Have fun.